I would like to introduce our audience to Laurel Blossom, our Edgefield Poet Laureate. She has some exciting news to share with us about an upcoming writing event. Would you please tell us about the competition?
When I was appointed Poet Laureate of Edgefield in April, I thought that it would be important and fun for me to have a young person in a position of Youth Poet Laureate to help me to promote an interest in poetry in Edgefield County and in the schools and so forth. So we are launching a Youth Poet Laureate competition, and the idea for the competition is that a young person, a junior or senior in high school in Edgefield County or homeschooled in the county, will help me to promote an interest in poetry throughout the county, and give that young person an opportunity to develop and create and recite and make public appearances reading his or her own poetry, and giving them an opportunity to expose, learn how to speak in public and so forth. So that's the idea. The eligibility requirements for the position are the following. The child must be a resident of Edgefield County, and must be a student, a junior or a senior in one of the high schools or homeschooled in the county. He or she must be recommended by an English teacher in the school or by a parent or guardian who is the primary homeschool person. She or he must complete an application form which is available through your English teachers at your schools and through the homeschool coordinator, Tracy Walker, I think her name is, I've sort of forgotten, I'm so sorry. And submit that application along with 3 original poems to the website ypl15sc@gmail.com by the deadline September 25th. 3 finalists will be chosen, and they will be interviewed by a selection committee comprised of educators, writers, and community leaders on October 17th. That deadline, interview will take place somewhere and at some time during that day. That has yet to be determined. And the ceremony for the announcement of the Youth Poet Laureate will take place on October 23rd at 5 p.m. At the county library. The 23rd of October is a Friday. The Youth Poet Laureate will be asked to do some of the following: to go with the Poet Laureate to visit schools and take part in community events, to help construct and decorate the poetry float that will be a part of the Christmas parade, and to drive the car that will pull the flatbed upon which the float will reside, and to design a poetry project for his or her school or for all the schools in the county, and for the homeschooled children, and possibly to take place at the library or at whatever venue the Youth Poet Laureate and his or her teacher works out. So those are the 3 main things. The first appearance of the Youth Poet Laureate after the 23rd of October announcement will be the next day, on the 24th of October, at the general store, where the Poet Laureate, myself, is launching her new book, a book called Longevity, and I am inviting the community to join me there, and I am looking very much forward to introducing the Youth Poet Laureate at that time.
Well, thank you so much. This is an exciting opportunity for our high school students and all of the area high schools, and we thank you so much for that. One thing I'd like for you to go into a little bit more detail, since you are a published poet, how do you create a good poem? If you could just tell us a little bit about your process.
Well, for me, poetry comes from a lot of different places. It can start with a word or a phrase, like the word, for instance, nevertheless, which I've used in a poem. It's a wonderful word to start with because it sets up already a dialogue. If when you say nevertheless, somebody has said something before you to which you are responding. And that sets up a kind of tension and an argument for the poem. I have also written poems that depended very much on image. One poem that I wrote a long time ago called No is the Answer is No, begins with this image. Then your shoulder or your head or your whole body collides with a wall of bricks. The pain, so dazzling, the remotest memories of your childhood flare up like faces when a match is struck in the dark. So you could have an image like that, and that can spark your imagination and get your mind vibrating and get you started on a poem. Poems can begin because you have a story you want to tell, or they can be nonsense. The poem that's up on the poem board outside the county library this week is a poem called Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll, and it is not entirely a nonsense poem, but it starts out very much as a nonsense poem. And it goes like this, if I can find it. Well, 'twas brillig, and the slithy tove did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogroves, and the mome wrath outgrabe. That's the first stanza of that very funny and wonderful Lewis Carroll poem. So poems can come from a lot of different places. And it's important to get a first draft written, but the first draft is only the beginning. It's very rare for the first draft to be the final draft. In my experience, revising is really important because poetry is not about ideas, it's about language. And the important thing that distinguishes poetry from prose is the way sound and meaning and associations between words and the associations of words and all of that comes together when you revise a poem and you can work with the words to make them bounce off each other and think about the origins of the words you're using and the associations of those words, because those things will lead you to the next image or phrase in the poem. And my experience is that you have to follow the poem's lead. The poem is outside of you, and it has its own life. And you have to follow its path and its dictates and its where it wants to go, rather than trying to impose some preconceived idea on the poem. And if you follow where the poem wants to go, you're definitely on the path to writing a good poem.
Well, I thank you so much today for coming and sharing a little bit about the competition with us, and also telling us the process and how a writer comes with a vision or maybe a story and goes from there. And we certainly want to encourage all of our young people in the community to think seriously about writing poetry and the benefits it can reap for them. And once again, if you are interested in this, please make sure that you contact your teacher, who will have email information available and deadlines. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Thank you, Marcy.